Hi, Sandra.
Hi, nice to talk with you.
I'm so happy to have you on.
Oh,
Thank you.
oh yeah, this is awesome. I just want to say how much I love what you do, combining it's meditation and digital marketing, and yeah, it's connected.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and I
Uh-huh.
love everything. I'm 35. I have a long journey to go, hopefully. So thank you. I appreciate it. Uh, I I'm. Is it okay to just kind of jump into this
Of
and
course,
because I would like
yeah,
to not waste any time and get as much
yes.
wisdom from you as possible from my audience. Do you want to get on video or no? It doesn't matter.
Oh, I didn't turn it on. So sorry about that.
That's okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Let's see. How is the? Yeah. Do I need to?
You
Uh,
sound great. How's the
okay.
lockdown treating you, by
Yeah,
the way, before I
yeah.
press record?
It's well, I run an online company and I'm an introvert anyways, so I'm doing fine. That's no different than my normal day. Just lots of Zoom calls and meetings, and yeah. So I have a very intense self-care practice, and so just able to fortunately continue that. I'm here in Scottsdale where the weather's been
Ooh.
great, and so I'm able to walk and do walk. I'm turning my house into a home gym. That's one of the things that's different.
So what did you order for your and we're just gonna roll right into this, Sandra.
Yeah.
Um and I'm gonna your intro I'm gonna do separately, so don't worry about that. But yeah, so what did you order? I'm curious for your home gym. What did you get?
Yeah, well, what I always had was my mat rolled out, my yoga mat, because it is just front and center. It is a key part of my life. It always has been for many, many years. So I never roll it up. It's just constantly out. And even if it's a busy day, like today, I have a lot of meetings and interviews, but I will do one pose at a time, as opposed to saying, I have to do an hour and 15 minutes of my yoga practice. Well, I can start off with some sun salutations, and I do handstands every day and headstands. And so I have practiced, I love to do backbends, particularly in the morning because they're energizing. And then I've added a lot of activities that I could do with my own body weight, such as push-ups. And I also have a TRX, which I love.
Oh, I
That's
love
your
those.
also your own body weight. So I've got it permanently hanging from a door. And I had been a real fan of Pilates, going to classes just about every day. And I thought, well, how can I bring that into my home? And so decided, well, I'm not going to the studio. And if I added up those membership fees, they add up. And so I decided this is an investment in my health. And I'm 70. And so it's crucial. There's no way around it to maintain health, longevity, cognition, being, staying sharp. So I invested in a Pilates chair and a full Pilates reformer. And so get in Pilates every day. And then I love the growth of the fitness industry towards use of artificial intelligence. And we're finding now that you don't need to get out and jog for 2 hours every day. You can do a high intensity workout in a very short period of time. It's efficient. And so I have a Carol bike, and I just invested in a tonal system because what I truly miss is the weights. And I didn't want to have to compromise bone health, and having that sarcopenia, muscle wasting, is a real problem as you age. And I have a very tiny frame, and so it is an issue. So preserving muscle is very crucial. So I am looking forward to the tonal system. I think we're going to see more and more of those systems that are coming out on the market, and hopefully more and more affordable. And so I gave up other things and figured my travel budget and so many other things that I was doing, well, that's going to go towards fitness and self-care.
Wow. The energy you have is inspiring for 70 years old, which you mentioned. So people, as the audience listening, I mean, and you can't see Dr. Sandra. She is just like you can. almost see like the energy radiate from your body as you're speaking. So it's amazing. And the fact that you're like even kind of reinventing your workout scene or scenario at the age of 70 is so like refreshing, because you think somebody's 65, 70, they're like, okay, retirement, now I'm just going to relax and live, at least that's what I'm surrounded with, right, with that. And to see you have like this different perspective and outlook of like, all right, now we need to do this and, I love it. It's so cool.
Oh, thank you. Oh, and I forgot to mention my rebounder. I have a trampoline, and I've made that as part of my routine. I do 5 minutes every morning, and you just jump, and it really gets things going. And I love that. I also take ballet and tap classes, so I have been doing that in a studio,
Yeah.
and it's all on Zoom. So I have wonderful classes. I got a ballet bar.
How do you
And
have time for anything else if you're doing all these things?
they're interwoven, so it's not like I'm going to go to an hour ballet and an hour tap. So those I do more on weekends, and it's one of the ways that I meditate. I've been taking ballet for a long time, and it's very meditative. I love the music combined with the movement, but I see it as exercise snacks, tiny bites throughout the day. So I might walk by my TRX, and I have a mat permanently with that, because it's on a floor that's, I wouldn't want to be just using without a mat. So I'll just unroll the mat. Oh, wait, I can do a few exercises. I'll do 10 reps of a pull-up, for example. Okay, and then another day I might pull out something else, or a blood flow restriction training, which there's a lot of good research on, where you have a series of, there's arm bands and leg bands, and I might do 10, 15 minutes of that. So instead of whatever catches my attention, having a prompt is really important. So if I have the jump rope out and I look at it, okay, I can do 10 minutes of jump rope, or if I don't have 10 minutes, I can do a minute. And so really giving yourself that ability to be flexible. You don't have to be tied in.
Let me stop you. You just said you did 10 pull-ups?
10, not the full pull-ups.
You're pumping out 10 pull-ups right now? Oh, hold on 1 second.
Oh, we have a friend.
My kids just jumped in the door here.
Hi there.
Hi guys. Sorry, I usually have it locked.
Oh, I love it.
So, all right, you can bring me this. I'm in the middle of a podcast call.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, so sweet.
So thank you for my food. This is Dr. Sandra. She is amazing.
Hi. Hello.
My wife's a yoga teacher, by the way.
Oh, I love it. I have training as a yoga teacher. I love yoga.
Here, let me. Here, you can leave it in here, but I'm going to be on a call. Okay. Sorry. I'm going to lock it. All right. They brought me. Okay, this is cool, right?
Oh, what'd you get?
My kids were excited to bring me some fake food.
Ooh, oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. Because I've been in here working for a little while.
Yeah. So I love that.
So I love how you said, because it reminds me of I'll just do like, and my wife always rolls her eyes at me. I'm always doing like push-ups around the house. So I'll just like drop it. The kids will be watching TV. I'll just drop in the living room and do like 25 push-ups, and then just be on my merry way. And she's like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah, before this call, I just got on my mat and I did like 30 push-ups. I had set as a goal either at least 250 to 300 push-ups, as much as I can. So sometimes I'll take a rest and have a day off, but it's one of the things I've incorporated. I've actually added it in with my yoga routine. It's just a reminder to do those push-ups. And so I just kept going, and sometimes having a prompt. So every time I will go to the bathroom, and when you're as old as I am, you have to feel a lot. So every time after I go to the bathroom, I will walk out, I'll step onto my mat, and I'll do another set of like 30 push-ups or so, and just keep going at it. And so yeah, I 300, I just like to keep going to see how many I could do in a day. And then also paying attention to, sometimes you have to rest, and sometimes that day off, or alternating. So some days more cardio and more others.
What does rest look like for you?
Yeah, so rest might be sitting in a sauna And I do that now. I have a far infrared sauna, and I will do that in the morning. Rest is, I have a red light therapy, and just taking some deep breaths while I'm using the red light therapy. And sometimes just that sun. I'm so fortunate because here in Arizona, it's
Yeah.
sunny a lot, but just getting, and when I was in the Chicago area, because I'm there part of the year, even on a cold wintry day, just rolling down a window, the car, for example, and just sitting outside and just soaking in that sun and closing my eyes. So that can be rest. And I just admit, though, I have trouble with a full rest day. I'm not one of those lounge by the pool or just sit down in an easy chair. Sometimes it's at the end of the day. I love comedy, and so watching something with my husband on Netflix, a comedy show, for example. So rest could be laughter and just enjoying something with company.
This is everything you're saying is so cool. And I have a red light therapy. I would love to ask more questions about that, but maybe we'll get into it because I want to ask, I mean, as a health coach and choosing to go this route later in life I want to ask you why you did that. And then also, like why you made that shift or pivot in your life and your business to a holistic health coach, and then what is meant by functional medicine. Can you drop those two for us?
Absolutely. So when I was 65, and that was 5 years ago now, I had been like 40 years a clinical psychologist, and I had a nice practice in a local community, the northern suburbs of Chicago, and I could have just continued doing that. But as you may have guessed, zest is my top strength and energy. And I had a mission. That is to take all of the things that I had trained in, that I had helped people with through the years that I knew worked for me personally, and integrate it, put all of these teachings and philosophies together and combine it with what I had just learned, and that was functional medicine. So I had gone through the Institute for Functional Medicine. They are our collaboration partner. And I thought, what if we approached them, and by we, I had somebody who was working with me, my associate, Elise. And so we thought we could take this basically curriculum and integrate it with functional medicine. And so we approached the Institute for Functional Medicine, and they said, great, we want to partner with you to collaborate, and you will train people to become health coaches. We train people, the doctors primarily, to practice functional medicine. So what is functional medicine?
Yeah.
Functional medicine is really more the medicine of why. It's where you get to the root cause. And there's an example, it actually came from a cartoon that I love, and I think it's a perfect way to describe it and how it differs from what we would call conventional medicine. So what does that look like? So if you imagine a room there's a flood, let's say it's the kitchen and the floor, it's basically flooding. There's a lot of water on the floor. And at one corner, there's a bunch of people, and they're frantically taking mops and buckets, and they're trying to sop up the water. And they're looking down at the floor. They're not looking up. And if they did that, they would notice that the faucet is running, the sink is overflowing. So all they need to do is go over to the faucet and turn off the flow of water. But they're not going upstream to the cause. They're looking at the symptoms, which is all the water on the floor. That's conventional medicine. Functional medicine, you turn off the faucet, you identify, is it inflammation? Is it oxidative stress? Where did that come from? Is it something that triggered this? Like perhaps someone had Lyme disease, or they had trauma as a child, or they've had other things that are ongoing, like they've been consistently eating a diet that's inflammatory, that's leading to an inflammatory state. And then how do you deal with it? Well, you start with diet, changing your lifestyle, moving more, having more meaning and purpose in your life, having more joy. Look, so that's what functional medicine is. And we train coaches in those principles. And we pair that with positive psychology, which is one of my specialties, where you look at what's right with you, not what's wrong. and it's very powerful. And then people create change. And so that is the process. And what led me at 65, well, I wanted to have a bigger impact. I was really concerned that people would go to a functional medicine doctor, for example, but sometimes they're out of reach and there aren't enough of them. But we could train thousands of health coaches to really make an impact and partner with people. Plus, the fact, I like to say that, people around me were retiring. And fortunately, I don't like to play cards, and that's a favorite activity for so many. I don't know, I don't want to learn to play canasta or mahjong and get involved in activities like that, especially because they involve a lot of sitting. So I just was not ready to so-called retire.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so there's a lot there. And let's start with why how can we get more people to trust the the people you're training, to seek out them instead of going right to the conventional medicine approach? How can somebody say, well, they're not doctors, they don't know what they're talking about? How can we get them to say yes or yes but? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so people need connection first and foremost, especially now. There's a lot of people who are isolated, they are lonely, and they have often been turning to sources of information that they thought were serving them. And so whether it's the food industry or whether it's something particularly they've read or their doctor has told them, well, you're just going to have this condition for the rest of your life. This is the medication and just take it. And basically, this is David Perlmutter, who's a functional medicine neurologist, just says, diagnose and adios. We have nothing for you other than these medications. And what will happen is it happens in several ways. And often they may hear something, a friend, a family member, they may come across something on social media and they want to know more. And so they're intrigued. Unfortunately, sometimes people wait until they've been from doctor to doctor and they're not getting any better, they're getting worse. And so that's when they step in and they would go to a functional medicine route. And when that happens, their functional medicine doctor increasingly will have a health coach. So many people, we know more and more people are interested in alternative approaches, looking at integrative medicine, and they're doing a lot of searches on their own, which can be good, but sometimes, Dr. Google might not have all the answers, but they can, if we're getting more and more information out there about the power of a coach. It's your personal cheerleader, and they can help you sort through all the information that's out there. And they're not the experts. They don't say, this is what you should be doing, or I'm going to write a plan for you. It's really what we call client-centered. So what would you like to focus on? How can we meet your needs? Just as like if you're doing a yoga practice, well, it's personalized. Some poses might not be right for you. Similarly, a coach can be that guide, can help you to feel empowered, like this works for me, this doesn't.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. And I think a lot of people are information seekers. And what I mean by that is they look for the information and then don't do anything with it. Does that make sense? Whereas I
Totally.
think that's where you guys come in, and it's like reaching through the computer and being like, no, let me guide you with this, what you're looking for. Let me coach you through it so that you can actually succeed with it, right? And not just learn about it.
Exactly.
Uh, I love that, and I think you're doing the world a huge service in such a chaotic, weird time that we're in, and we're recording this like 5 days before the election or something like that, which is it's interesting, causing a lot of people stress, causing a lot of people anxiety. And that's where functional medicine comes in, right? That's where people like you and coaching helps people get through this sort of thing. I am fascinated with this on you. I saw that you are a director at a attention deficit disorder clinic. Are you still a
Yes.
director there?
No, that was my past life.
Your
I
past life.
had directed when that was in the 90s.
Okay.
So my career started way back in elementary education. I had a master's in learning disabilities, and I taught in a classroom. Then I taught at a local college, teaching teachers how to teach kids with special needs. And then this was again, they didn't even call it ADD back then.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it was just some other fancy term for it, but hyperkinesis. And so then when we did start talking about ADD, late 80s, early 90s, and I ran a center, I was one of the first to do a controlled study on neurofeedback, which at the time that was considered like quackery. But I had always specialized in biofeedback. Neurofeedback is where it's EEG training.
Mm.
And we were finding, lo and behold, if we trained kids to regulate their brainwave activity through some stimulating games and activities and on a computer. And this was very, very much in the early days of this technology, using biofeedback for EEG brainwaves, and found that they did better, and they did some attention improved on markers of attention. So I ran a clinic, I tested hundreds, more than that, thousands of people for learning disabilities and ADD. And now I look back with regret, because from positive psychology, it was all focused at the time on what's wrong with you. And I was always focused on what's right with these kids. And so even back when I was in learning disabilities, I remember I got graded down. I was working in a clinic. It was at Northwestern University in their learning disabilities department. And kids would come in and we'd put them through this battery of tests. And I would always have in the report some of their strengths. And I remember my supervisor said, no, this is going to be misleading to the parents. You have to give specific things about how to teach to how to remediate these deficits. So now it's really thanks to positive psychology, which has a name now as a discipline. We are focused there. So things that we used to think are wrong with people, these deficits like ADD, can be rephrased as zest, creativity, and you look towards what's good with somebody.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I have my own, I'm not an expert in that field, but just based on what I'm learning and how kids are supposed to be kids, my question was going to be, what it was literally going to be like a rhetorical, where I was going to say, why do you believe that ADD is over diagnosed in kids, right? Which I believe personally.
Yep.
Um, and so I was going to ask you that, and you kind of explained it. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to it. Um,
Yeah, I think that it is overdiagnosed. I think that we're so quick to label. And when I was running that clinic, that was focused on what we'd call more of a mind-body medicine approach, that the fact that you could actually change the brain. You don't need medication necessarily. In some cases, it may be necessary.
sure.
And so, but for many kids, they're just quick to, the usual route. And I experienced this so many times. Kids and youngest in kindergarten, even preschool, a teacher would call a parent in, Johnny is moving around a lot, is not listening, is not sitting still. And, I think you should explore ADD and may need medication. And then they would go to the pediatrician. The pediatrician would hear the parent, and then, okay, we'll write a prescription. Let's see how he does. They wouldn't even do any testing. And it was like testing by the medication effect. Well, if this works, we'll write a prescription and then get back to me if you think they're doing well on the meds. That's it. Now they're diagnosed. And I'm really concerned about what that label, what is that doing? You've defined somebody, I'm a child with, or, I have an ADD child, and so we're finding that this is it's related to this is where functional medicine comes in.
Yeah.
What else is going on in the body? Like, did they ever ask what that child eats? Did they ask, were they breastfed or bottle fed? What's the gut microbiome like? What is the environment? What's the situation in their home life? And then, giving permission, especially little boys, to just, knowing that they're going to have excess energy. One of the things I forgot to mention, I have a treadmill desk, but I also have a pedal desk. I actually got the kid size. And so if I am sitting, I'm pedaling. And there's been some studies with kids where they found that you just get them on a pedal desk and they're less inattentive.
I could see like myself now. I'm totally the person that would like bring it to my kids, my first graders classroom and be like, okay, Arya's going to be on her pedal desk while everybody else is sitting there and just totally embarrass her, but she's going to be, that's amazing. I love that. Do you have kids or grandkids?
Great question. I wish I had grandkids. I have two daughters. My younger daughter is our chief operating officer, and then my older daughter is an actress in LA. She was a child actress, and so she's actually co-host of our podcast.
Oh,
So,
cool. What's your
yeah.
podcast called?
What the Funk. It's a fun as well as educational look at functional medicine.
Oh, cool,
So,
cool. She is there a child actress? Is there any movies that I would know? This is just a random curious question. Movies that we would know.
let's see, not movies. She was on Early Edition. She's been on Weeds, Masters of Sex, and actually
Oh,
she so this was an interesting story. So she and her ex-husband, so her name's Laura Shine, and so they wrote a musical called Emoji Land that was years in the making, not about any way, shape, or form related to the Sony movie. The Emoji movie,
Emoji movie, yeah.
but which was terrible. But theirs is about
Which is terrible.
It was a terrible movie, got terrible reviews. And so they were talking about perseverance. So they were told, oh, give up. Like, nobody's gonna want to look at your music theater production and produce it if following the Sony movie. But they persevered. I can't tell you how many times they started back on page 1. They listened to what people would say. So the script went through numerous revisions, and then they were off Broadway just as the pandemic was starting. And the show was a rave by the New York Times and got great reviews. It was selling out every night. Kids were starting to line up, around the block to see it. And it's about a virus that infects a phone, and the whole Emoji Land civilization is threatened. So you have to picture this. They are on stage and they are singing this song called Virus. And one by one, the emojis are being killed off. They're threatened. And backstage, they're getting texts from the Broadway Theater League that the whole Broadway and off-Broadway is shutting down. And you could just feel the tension in the audience, but also like they know no longer is this just about an emoji civilization. This is real, and it was just uncanny. So it was shut down. They still have the costumes, and the set is still at the theater because they all all left as the theater and the whole Broadway world shut down. But it was really kind of art mimicking real life.
Well, I can't wait for it to be back. Hopefully they when this is all through, because there's going to be a point when this is through and things are semi back to normal. They plan on reopening, I mean, that sounds like a great thing to go to with my kids.
Yeah, we hope so. Well, there's a soundtrack, Emoji Land.
Oh, there is? Okay, I'll check that out. I'll check the soundtrack out
cast
first.
recording. Luckily,
cool.
They did that.
How cool! That's really neat that your kids are. That's neat. That's neat. What did
I've
you
always
do?
loved to. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say I always loved merging performing and the arts with both my life, and when we designed a curriculum for Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, we have actors who are performing, playing clients, and that's how one of the ways we teach, where you actually see it in action, and just love bringing in humor and just using the arts. I think the arts are so healing, therapeutic, and my own personal meditation practice is always using some type of music or sound or movement
Yeah.
dance.
And do you ever do a meditation where you're just sitting still with sound?
Yes, I love that. I love that type of meditation, and
Beautiful.
yeah, incorporate that, as well as I do walking meditation or candle or just running water. Like sometimes if I'm just, doesn't have to be a long practice. It could be I'm doing the dishes and just really aware of the water and the sounds and the feeling of that, the tactile
You
experience.
seem like you have a lot of presence in your life. What is, um, and obviously all this stuff goes into why you have a successful coaching business to teach other coaches and create them. What, like, what do you attribute like all these different things we talked about? What is you get the most like energy from? Like one or two things that you for your day, like you need to get this in specifically, or else your day like won't be the way it should be.
Yeah, it's really paying attention to posture, doing a lot of standing and avoiding sitting, like I'm standing right now.
Oh,
And Amy Cuddy talks about it as power poses, but it can be, it's like a mini back bend. And, just in ballet, there's called cambre back. And it's just, so I do tons of back bends throughout the day, different kinds, the yoga back bends. I start my day off with that. Just even waking up in the morning, my mother used to say this, and so I honor her, but I will just like, today's going to be a good day, and just like feeling that sense of spinal awakening. And somebody and they do this in ballet a lot as well. Like you feel the string of pearls, or you're just like lengthening through the top of your head. And I
yeah.
really feel that. So just feeling grounded in the earth, and then feeling the length. And so just continually reminding myself. So back bends, I can't go through the day without doing some form of back bends, so to get energy. And then the other is some type of forward bend, some type of a stretch, which is more of the surrender and the quieting. So, and then the other thing that I have done, I would say religiously, it's a ritual, is inversions, just seeing the world upside down, getting blood flow to my brain. So every morning, the first thing when I go to my yoga mat, I start off with a headstand, and then we'll incorporate a handstand as well. So it's just again, even I've traveled with my yoga mat, and I now I don't do it in the center of the room, but I find a wall, so I have the safety of
Yeah.
the walls there if I need it. And but even when I was traveling a lot, I traveled with my mat, and the first thing I would do, and I got to a hotel room, okay, is there a wall space? And I've even moved furniture, so I have a wall that I could do my handstands.
It's that, yeah, everything you were mentioning, the backbends, the inversions, it just reminds me of how much I miss going to a yoga studio and then adding all that to the energy of the room. I admittedly have been way off my yoga practice since all the studios shut down. And even they're open now, it's weird, but so that's so cool to hear. And it almost reminds me to get back to that a little bit more. Maybe somebody listening could have that as a reminder too. What let's first off, actually, when you were growing up with your kids, were you doing all these things around the house too?
I like to incorporate them. There were some videos, and it's been quite some time since I checked out the kids' videos. And we're talking VHS tapes,
Yeah.
but I remember there was one from Hannah Anderson, the clothing company, and she had this like movement with kids, and so we would do all these things. So it was much more with kids. So it was mommy and me programs and Gymboree and all that. So it was using that, and then basically those were the days where it didn't have good research on the power of like interval training, high intensity, and
Yeah.
so it was much more of had to stick to a routine. So I had a treadmill, and I remember going down in the basement and had to getting up early while they were sleeping, and I got to get in my hour. And it was much more just half do's and not
Mm,
fun, and oh, I'm going to get on the treadmill, and oh,
interesting.
is an hour up yet? And so we were tied into that. Or you took a class and it could only be an hour class. I wasn't doing yoga at the time when they were little. I started that practice this when my daughters were in high school. But
Mhm.
because I was a stage mom and I was doing a lot of driving for my older daughter. She was homeschooled because she was doing matinee production. So she actually wasn't even allowed in school. They had a attendance requirement. So she was homeschooled, but we drove into Chicago and she would take a lot of dance classes. And so I would join in sometimes because I was, oh, there's people my age. I can join in the class. So it was a lot of mother-daughter going down to dance class. And I did a lot of that. And,
It's so cool how you've made it like fun. Like you made the exercises that you do, and it can see like it brings you joy and enjoyment. And I've always tried to figure out how to do that by getting a trainer maybe, or adding this or doing. That's really neat. How you created that. Can we get into if you want, we can talk more about your coaching business, which I'm going to put all over the show notes, and anybody interested in becoming a coach, changing careers, shifting. I mean, first off, let's talk about the clientele out there. It's boundless, would you say, right? There's a lot of opportunity for getting clients, correct?
oh my gosh, this field is exploding because I think now, often for the first time, people are starting to be concerned about their health. They're feeling vulnerable. They're feeling like, hey, I better do
Mm.
something. There's also many people who have put on weight during the pandemic. They're not moving around. They're feeling confined, and they're thinking about it in terms of what can I do? And there's also this increased awareness as more and more companies, more and more doctors are adding coaches. So it's becoming much more common. And coaches can work virtually, whereas doctors, they can, but there's still licensing issues across state lines. And coaches are not licensed medical providers, so they are not bound by those restrictions. And so, like you have Amazon, for example, who they're hiring coaches as they're setting up that's a trial basis right now, but for their employees, they're setting up these medical facilities for them and adding coaches. Fitbit is now the new Fitbit watch, they have a membership program, and it's coming with coaching. So every day I open up my inbox and I see alerts about health coaching, and more companies are incorporating this. So it's becoming much more common, and there's a huge demand. This is an exploding profession. And what we're seeing is that people who've been disrupted now, so let's say you're a yoga teacher and you are no longer, your studio is no longer in operation, or you're an acupuncturist and you want to, what can I do now? And so you can add coaching. You can start to coach as a side hustle. Many people do that. They come from all walks of life. You don't need a healthcare background. I just want to say that some of the best coaches are complete newbies to healthcare,
Mm.
and they're often, again, they're wonderful at it.
Yeah, and like, um, do you teach how to like do one-on-one coaching, group coaching? Like, do you show how to do all the different levels, I guess, and what price points to charge and all that stuff?
Absolutely. So we have, you can coach one-on-one, you can just have a conversation like we are, or you could have a group, and groups are really growing. That's going to be the future of healthcare, group medical visits. And in many cases, if you're working with a doctor, this is something that insurance will reimburse. So, but we have coaches who are working in medical practices, working in corporations. They're starting their own business, getting referrals from people in the community, and they can do this virtually. And in fact, they're finding people like it better. Virtual groups are really catching on. So you get a group of people together, let's say they're all struggling with blood sugar issues, and they're all supporting one another. And when you feel like you're part of this group and you're not alone and you're being heard, that's one of the things that people say about when they have a coach. They feel like they have somebody on their side who really hears them, who understands, and it's not going to be pushy. It's not going to be telling them what to do or judging them. Oh, wait a minute, you said you'd go out and exercise and you didn't do it this week. So that's the beauty of the relationship.
Yeah, that last word you just said, the relationship. It seems like as a functional medicine coach, as a holistic coach, health coach, your first interaction with that person is listening and caring, and trying to like see what they're going through, and then using your expertise to kind of guide them and talk to them. Whereas when you go to a doctor and go, there's place for each of these, right? But when you go to a doctor, okay, I'll just share quick my example for those listening. I just thought about this like 3 months ago. About 2 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, I got these headaches every morning for, I think it lasted like 5, 6 months. I've never had a headache my whole life. Haven't had them since, really, never before that. And so I went to the doctor. I'm like, after a couple of months, I'm like, what the heck is going on? And they tested my eyes. I went to an eye doctor, and then I did like a scan of the brain, I believe, because they were so bad. And I was doing all these things, and I look back at it, and they never figured it out, by the way. I look back at it now, and the other day I was like, they never once asked me what my diet was, never asked me, what I do exactly for work. Am I staring at a screen? Am I, it was they never diagnosed, am I going through stress with my spouse? They never asked any of those questions now that I look back on it, which is, I probably could have figured this out in like a day if they did. Right?
Yeah,
Do you
oh,
agree
that's
with that?
such, yeah, and that is, I'm so sorry and that's hard to experience, and you're not alone. This is what we hear all the time, and practitioners, and I don't want to just knock acute care medicine. If you're having a heart attack, if you broke your leg, you need to get to the hospital. You need to be in the ER, and that's the best of what we have that acute care has to offer. But they don't do so well with things like ongoing headaches, and after they rule out the real serious things that could be causing it, or things like type 2 diabetes or obesity. And that's where the functional medicine approach, and particularly coaches who can really support people in the community to change how they're eating, to show them how. And this is why it's so powerful. And another reason is that they can provide crucial emotional support. So people are hurting right now. They're sad, they're lonely, they're fearful, they're scared, and they're isolated often. They're missing things that they used to have a lot of joy from. And they are not candidates for psychotherapy, for going to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, who are going to be quick to diagnose them. And yes, there are people where that's absolutely necessary. If you have childhood trauma, if you have major depression, and so you want to go that route, and coaches will refer to a mental health professional. For many people, though, to not be saddled with a psychiatric diagnosis, which can be demoralizing, and told, you need psychotherapy for a long time, they want an ally. They want to be heard. They want to know they're not alone. And often you get people, particularly in a group, together to support one another, and just working with a coach that say, yeah, we all feel this way. And so it normalizes those feelings, so you don't feel like, what's wrong with me? And you start to feel hopeful. And so that's one of the main powers of coaching, which I should say stemmed from a field of psychotherapy called humanistic psychotherapy. So when I trained in the 80s of my clinical psychology doctoral program, there was no coaching, didn't exist. And so life coaching stemmed from this humanistic approach that was client-centered psychotherapy. And then a spin-off of life coaching was health and wellness coaching that addresses physical health as well as mental health.
What are some, out of curiosity, what are some like specific medicines or herbs or natural pills or whatever that you do work with patients, like multivitamins, what kind of things?
Sure. So I first of all want to qualify to just
Not patients,
say
I'm
no,
sorry. I
no, no,
knew.
no, no, no. So yeah, so distinguish, but yeah. So there, coaches do not prescribe or make direct recommendations.
Okay.
What we would do is have a trust. Perhaps there's a a book about herbs, or the American Botanical Council, for example, has good research that comes out. So you might refer them to a source and provide education. So we're not the experts. The coach would refer them to something that's been written by an expert, or perhaps refer them to an herbalist for that specialist. So not going outside of your lane, your scope of practice. But we know that there are many things that are calming. And before we even go to supplements, we'd start with foods. Well, are you drinking 6 cups of coffee a day? Are you eating late at night? What's your style? Are you rushed all the time when you're eating? So start there with kind of more of a mindful slowing down, chewing more, looking at some more calming foods. So are you getting, in terms of the full spectrum of phytonutrients? Is your diet colorful? And then looking at, well, maybe herbal. What do you guys think about herbal tea? Let's say I was coaching somebody, or may I make a suggestion? Many people have found that, tea can be, something that soothing and calming, and sometimes even just hot water with lemon, just the act of having something hot and feel that's soothing to you. So it doesn't even have to be the particular substance. And then you can go further as in terms of looking at some of the lemon balm or magnesium, asking, are you aware of the importance of magnesium? Is that something you'd be interested in learning about? And then rather than making a direct recommendation, so you, as my client, you should be taking so much magnesium a day, would provide a resource or refer perhaps to a nutritionist at that point if somebody is needing a consultation to know exactly, what are their magnesium levels and how can we come up with a nutrition plan.
Okay. I take, and maybe you can, I don't even know why I take these or how I came across them, but slowly but surely talking to people, I've come down to this. I take a magnesium pill, a vitamin B12, a multivitamin, a vitamin C with rose hips, a spore-based probiotic, friend of mine's company. That's the only reason I trust it. Because I know there's a lot of fake probiotics out there, ones that don't work. And I think that's what I take, those every morning. Am I missing something?
So this is personalized. So you want to look at, what perhaps getting some testing, and so a coach would say, are you interested in, in talking to your doctor or learning more about some specialized testing, perhaps working with a functional medicine doctor if you're not thriving. So if you're young and healthy and you're interested in prevention, that would be one thing. People who have maybe some serious medical conditions would not want to do this on their own. They would definitely want to work with a functional medicine practitioner, with a nutritionist, dietitian. And also then the next step would be, as a coach, might ask you, well, what brand do you use? You mentioned the Spore, and they're, as you know, there are good products, and then there are ones that are sold through Amazon. You would not want to just buy something online or go into a local Costco and just grab something, because you don't, how was it manufactured? And there's huge differences. Many of these supplements have fillers and binders, and they're often not even what they say they are. They're manufactured in China. So that would be the next step. And coaches can educate their clients about what we would call a nutraceutical brand, where they have third-party testing, and they are very rigorous about the raw materials, testing those. So a coach would help you to differentiate, to be a smart consumer and read labels, understand what's in a supplement, certain chemicals you might, and again, to look at, like in kids' vitamins, they have artificial colors and flavorings in them.
Sugar,
And so
extra sugar.
yeah,
These are all
exactly.
mindful things. These are like just being mindful about
Yes,
each thing you're
exactly.
doing, being
Yeah.
very That's why I had you on
Yes.
the Mindful Impact podcast.
Yeah, so to be
Yeah.
mindful that it's not just going and grabbing a multivitamin or grabbing some magnesium. Well, there are a lot of different forms of magnesium. There are actually, I believe there are now like 8 forms. So it depends, in terms of which one is right for you. And so
Mm,
that would be why it would be best to, look for some professional. Most people can't go wrong with a good quality nutraceutical multivitamin, but even there, maybe some have iron, some don't have iron.
right.
This whole field is complicated, but I think you can also look at a good resource that would be going to ifm.org, particularly if you're interested in the immune support. So they have a lot of resources there. They have a position paper on some of the things that you should be taking that in terms of like, most people are vitamin D deprived. And that's a question that you would want to ask yourself.
Mm,
Do I know my vitamin D levels? Have they been checked?
yeah.
And so especially now we know the importance of vitamin D as a preventative, and we're looking at that during the pandemic, and vitamin C and what form of vitamin C. Those are all issues to consider.
Yeah.
Zinc is
Cool.
another one.
Zinc. Okay.
Yeah.
Zinc. Yeah. I think my it's like magnesium plus zinc, maybe. I don't know. Sometimes they have like combos in them, that you
Yeah.
take.
Yep.
And I think all my brands have the word nature. And
Okay.
so
Well, that's
like
always, yeah.
nature's brand, nature's
Uh-huh.
way, like I totally probably got sold on the
Yeah.
marketing, but
Well, you bring up such a good point, and that is, and Mark Hyman talks about this a lot, as does Michael Pollan, Food Rules. But if something is called healthy, or if it has a claim on it, you probably want to avoid buying it. So the more they will say, healthy or all natural, and that's probably a buzzword for, well, maybe it's not so natural.
yeah. Thank you for that. We got to look out for that. That's so true. You got those random, but you have a lot of books behind you. Do you have a couple favorites that you recommend individuals to check out?
Sure.
I love reading, so.
Yeah. So uh, there's a classic that I just turn to time and time again, and that is by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. It's all about Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor, and this is a book that has withstood the test of time. It's very relevant for our time. How do you find meaning in your life? And it points to having a purpose, and that comes through love, and we get that through community. And so that is one that I've read and reread.
I
And
need to
then
reread that. I would have
yeah,
totally, for people listening, this is, you probably, it hasn't been mentioned in a while because I don't think I've talked about books, but in the beginning, I had 3 or 4 guests mention that specific book. So if anybody hasn't read that yet, like go get it. Totally. But anyway, yes. Well, you're saying a second one?
yeah. So I set out for this is my new book collection, because I still have a house in northern suburbs of Chicago, and I have a collection going back to high school. I don't throw out books very often, so got
Mm.
lots and lots of books there.
You just have like a
And so,
wall, like just like
like, yeah,
walls
huge
covered.
wall of books.
Cool.
And here, though, I set out the intention that I'm only going to have books by people I know. And I'm really blessed to know a lot of
Wow.
people in health and wellness, as well as part of our course is teaching business tactics and growing a business and marketing to our health coaches, because they're
Ah,
often at a loss. How do I build my business?
yeah.
And so these are all books by people that I know. And so
Nice.
and actually, this is something that I need, that I've resisted, but there's a book called Simple Numbers And I'm blocking on the author just
Mm.
because this is how much I have avoided the topic of math and numbers and finances. But it really, if you're setting out to build a business, simple numbers is one, profit first is another one along those lines. It's really, really fundamental philosophy, attitudes towards money. And so those are ones that I like to pull out because they're simple to read, and they're in an area that I know for me personally is very underdeveloped, and that is the whole finance side of things.
Yeah, beautiful. And I can tell that you totally care about your books because they're all hard. Most of those are hardcover behind you. It's the one thing I notice for sure. Because I'm like, okay, is this book worth buying the hardcover for? Or do I just want to buy the soft? I always do make that decision.
Well, yeah, full disclosure, many of those have been sent to me. I'm in a number of mastermind groups and where they send books to all the people who will be the presenters, and I know them, or the authors will send me their books because they're, or we're friends, and they just send a copy of a new book. So, but I love books. I also love novels, and you talked about getting away and before, and how do I rest? And that's a way. Now, full disclosure, I do a lot on Audible where I'm walking and listening to the book. I am
Mm.
in a book club. I've been in that book club for like almost over 15 years. And
Wow.
so just escaping through a story, a novel, is something that I love to do. And that's part of my rest.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. If you could go back and Sandra, if you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self anything, like give yourself some advice, what would you say to that person?
Oh, I would say, lay off the sugar. What the hell are you doing? You don't need to throw out that bag of M&Ms. It's going to totally fuck up your
Oh, they're
system. I
so
don't know.
good though.
Yeah, I know. And that's because I binged on sugar when I was 18. It'd be starting college. I was in college, and I would just days where all I would do is just like eat sweets, and then got seriously, addicted. It was nothing to like, I've never been seriously obese. I was definitely heavier than I am now, but who knew back then about the dangers of this and how addictive it was? But yeah, just eating so much sugar and being an emotional eater was something that I've
So do you have a
struggled
sweet
with.
tooth that
Oh,
and how do you crave it then right now? What are the
yeah.
tricks for yourself?
Yeah. So I basically go cold turkey, and I will satisfy it with, if I'm doing something sweet, it would be monk fruit. But most of the time, it's just savoring the taste of a berry or a raspberry. I also, this is, most people would find this way too intense, but 100% dark chocolate is something that I love. And I'll add perhaps some shredded coconut, and so just have that, or I'll do the 100% dark chocolate, and I'll have a one or two raspberries at the same time. That can satisfy a craving, but it could still get out of control if I start to eat mindlessly. If I'm scrolling through Instagram at the same time that I'm eating, oh, I've eaten 3 times as much as I should. Or nuts. Cashews have a little bit more sugar, so I could totally get out of control with that. So I have
Mm.
to continue to be mindful. And actually, I learned from some DNA testing that's actually a genetic variation that I have. My older daughter has it too. It's just we're prone to have a sweet tooth.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
funny to listen to you be like, I could get carried away with nuts. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm thinking I could get carried away with like my kids' cheese puffs that eat or something like
Oh, that was
that.
me. That was me in my earlier days, but more likely it was like a bag of Oreos or,
Oh, so we
yeah.
every now and then we'll have Oreos in the house, and but like we'll only have like two. I'll be like, okay, you only have two when I could eat 10 of them
Yeah.
easily. But and I tried like the supplement Oreos that you could buy at the store. They're just not the same. But yeah, that sweet tooth is dangerous for me. So that's why one mindful thing I have to really watch myself with. So I'm on the same page as you. But I haven't graduated to like nuts, almonds, and monk fruit yet. I'm not at that level. So maybe someday.
I've been making popsicles lately, and I'll just
Ooh,
use like, and I just got an almond cow, which I'm obsessed with, where you make your own nut milk. And so I'll make some nut milk. I'll use coconut, or I just made with macadamia. And then I'll take a couple avocados, put it in a Vitamix, or if you have a high-speed blender, and then I add some raw cacao powder and some sometimes some protein, some collagen protein, and
oh,
just throw a couple things in there and some almond milk or coconut milk, and then I'll put it in molds, some popsicle molds,
yeah.
and I've got some stainless steel ones, and then I just put it in the freezer. And sometimes I'll add some mint to it, and so mint can have this sweet like taste. At least I think so. And then I just have a popsicle, and it brings back memories of being little and enjoying. It's just the frozen sensation. So sometimes you can kind of trick yourself. You can have something that are substitutes, but it gives you some of the characteristics that you remember as being
That
super
actually
good.
sounds delicious. I wish you had like a small recipe for that, or just throw everything together and blend.
Yeah, I just throw everything together. But if you do a search for like avocado popsicles,
Mm,
tons of stuff will pop up.
mm. Sounds delicious. I've never tried that before. Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on here. Is there anything else that you would like to add or plug for sure? Because we've talked a lot about your coaching business. I would like to know where people can go directly to check that out.
Yeah, so it's functionalmedicinecoaching.org. That's our website. On Facebook, Functional Medicine Coaching Academy. Instagram is Functional Med Coach, or following me personal, it's Dr. Sandy, Sandi. And I just want to close by saying, what's real in the mind is real in the body. Every thought, every image, everything we feel, it's all in the body as well, and vice versa. So you can change things. You don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to be in pain or suffering. Change your mindset, change your thoughts. And it's really, really possible to create profound change, and also shifting profession. If you feel stuck, you want to try something different, it's a rewarding career to be a coach.
Oh, I bet. I've had a couple coaches on and they just love like they literally love their life. They love waking up, what they do. So, you know, definitely consider that if you're trying to figure out your next move and you're listening to this. Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.